Our next presenter is a local actor, director, playwright. He spends most of his work time at the theater, which really annoys his wife and kids. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big hand for Mathew Green.
Thanks. Okay, so right off the bat, trouble, because storytelling is too vast a topic to boil down to 20 beats. So what do I leave out besides everything? Cave paintings, ancient Greek, Shakespeare, Native American songs, Mark Twain. I can't even explain why storytelling is so important to me in this amount of time, but I'll give it a shot. I probably wasn't this young when I started loving stories, but that's not how my parents tell it. Little golden books, nursery rhymes, these were my entertainment, and I was reciting my favorites back to my parents long before I could read them off the page. And who was my favorite storyteller of all time? This guy. Next guy. This. This is my dad, okay? This giant of a man who worked in the oil fields before he became a prison guard, just for a change of pace. You'd never catch him giving a speech, but when he told stories about his past, about his childhood, his exploits with his brother, I was in heaven. It still happens once in a while. He hooked me on comic books, and those tales of mythology and adventure in ridiculous costumes were the gateway to all other kinds of literature for me. I began writing my own stories, creating my own characters, my own worlds, and telling everybody about them. When I was a kid, all through school, that's who I was. I was the writer. And then in college, I got my own ridiculous costumes. After years of writing stories, short and should have been shorter, I took an acting class. And I discovered plays. And plays were and are the most perfect injection system for storytelling that I have ever encountered. The lights come up, the actors speak, the audience listens, right in the vein. I am incredibly lucky to have a place where I can immerse myself in telling and hearing stories. I'm incredibly lucky to have friends and coworkers and co-conspirators who care as much as I do about entertaining and educating and enriching their communities with telling stories. For the last 8 years, the Station Theater in Urbana has been my creative home. And in the course of directing, performing, and watching plays, I have learned and shared more about our world, our mutual existence in all its complexity and difficulty than I ever would have believed possible. There is something about the process of rehearsing a play, about trying to find the best, most effective way to tell a story for maximum enjoyment, for maximum impact, for maximum resonance, that takes a group of people, actors, directors, designers, and it makes them into a family in a way that ordinarily only war, religion, or zombie apocalypse can. Sometimes the challenge is to take a horrifying idea, like an Irish terrorist shooting up his village to find the murderer of his pet cat, and find the humor and tenderness underneath it, all that stage blood, shocking an audience into laughing together. Sometimes the challenge is to confront people's deeply held beliefs, their political affiliations, their prejudices, and say, here is a story about a person, an individual who lived and died. And you hope to show the universality of optimism and hope and even disenchantment in that. The universality of fear and hope and love and acceptance. And when you tell these stories, these specific stage stories, from the time the lights come up to the final blackout, you hope to reach every single person watching. You hope to be telling their story, too. When telling a story on stage, every voice contributes to the experience. The playwright sets down the text and establishes the parameters, the edges of the story. We begin here, we encounter this problem, the characters learn this, we arrive at this conclusion. And then the director and the designers, they decide what this world is going to look like. For this story, in this theater, on this night, this is what an audience will see. This is not only different from this theater to that theater and from production to production, but also in a single theater from night to night. The story is never exactly the same, and that's what makes it so special. The audience is only in this room, this theater, for a short time, but they are here together, sharing this experience, sharing these emotions. They are hearing this story, and it will never happen again. Not exactly like this. This is something unique to them. This is a single experience together. And the number of stories there are to tell and the ways to tell them are endless. Take the story of Eurydice, who dies on her wedding day, travels to the underworld, finds her long-lost father there, and then must decide whether to stay with him or to travel back to the land of the living with her husband, who has come to rescue her. To make people cry by telling them a story, or to make them laugh until they cry, as was the case with the 39 Steps, which has 4 actors playing 100 parts, live, sweating under wigs and fake beards and drag. I live for this. Or shows like the one I'm doing this summer, which is kind of a secret. I can't really tell you, but it's a number between 7 and 9. Because entertaining people is a noble enough pursuit, but it's also possible to use this brilliant theatrical contraption to do some good. In addition to my work at the Station Theater, I am fortunate to work here at the university with Inner Voices Social Issues Theater, a group that produces original interactive theater in order to address important issues to our culture. We collaborate and create art that engages audiences and attempts to spark dialogue in our community. We literally tell stories in order to make the world a better place. Beat that. So, full circle. Why is all of this so important to me? Why do I care so much about the stories I tell and the impact they have? That's why. It's my daughter. And this is what I'm going to leave her. I'm never going to be rich. I'm never going to build a bridge. But I can teach her that words are important. I can teach her that the stories we share matter and how special it is to do that. Because in the end, stories are meant to be told. They're meant to be heard. They're meant to be listened to. They're meant to be passed from person to person to connect us. And I can't wait to hear the stories that she's going to tell me and about me. Thank you.